Hi, I'm Peach. In this video, you will find out why Kratos is really the main character of God of War. Let's get started, meow. First of all, who is Kratos anyway? For those who don't know or haven't played the previous parts of God of War, I'll explain. Kratos is the main character and part-time muscular Spartan God of War. However, in God of War 4, Kratos loses his grip and gives up his place as the main character to his son Atreus. Compared to the previous parts in which he was a fierce, hot-tempered young man, here he has aged. Now he's talking about peace and balance to his son. So, Atreus just replaces his father and becomes the main character. Throughout the game, we watch him grow. At first, he is quite an obedient child, but when he learns the truth about his origin, he stops obeying Kratos and says that everything is allowed to the gods, even the murder of innocents. At such moments, he really pissed me off. But then, Atreus sees his behavior from the outside in Helheim and cannot believe that these are his words. Well, at least he realized his behavior compared to some. Another reason we understand that Kratos has been pushed aside is when Baldur comes to their hut and clearly runs into a fight. Here, Kratos thinks that Baldur has come for him, so he tries to hide his son. This scene seems normal to the players until the end of the game, because everything looks quite logical. Kratos cut down the trees protecting their house, which is why everyone found out about their existence. However, at the end of the game we learn that Baldur didn't come for Kratos at all, but his wife Faye. That means he didn't know she was already dead at that time. And also, apparently he didn't know that she was a woman, so he confused Kratos with her. Moreover, he didn't even know about the existence of some god of war named Kratos. We can tell that based on his jokes like, "Long way from home, aren't you?" or "I thought you'd be bigger." The first phrase is about the mountain of giants, which is far away, and it's strange that Kratos is in the human world Midgard. Already at the beginning, the developers hint to us that this story isn't about Kratos at all, but he needs to be somehow shoved into the game since he is generally a Greek god who found himself on Scandinavian soil. Let's go further.
Leave my house!
As you have already guessed, Kratos and Atreus are ancient Greek gods, but Atreus is actually called Loki, which we only find out at the end of the game when Kratos says that Atreus' mom wanted to call him Loki. This fact changes everything. First, Loki's mother Faye, or her real name Laufey, is a giantess. Even Kratos didn't know about it, thinking she was human. In mythology, Laufey was the goddess of the forest and trees, and her husband Farbauti was a giant. So, Loki was considered first of all a giant, and secondly a god. But in the game, it's the opposite. At the end of the game, Kratos along with Atreus finds out that his wife could predict the future by showing them their entire journey on the walls of Jotunheim, in other words, the mountain of giants. According to some phrases incomprehensible even to Kratos, one can guess that Atreus also sees the future like his mother. For example, when they are sailing on a boat, he suddenly says that he sees a tower, but Kratos answers him, "Are you okay, boy? I do not see any tower." As a result, they see the same tower later when they find themselves in an amazing place called the Realm Between Realms. The next oddity is when they find themselves inside the World Serpent to find the statue of Thor and get the second eye of Mimir. Suddenly Atreus says that he had already felt this. As a child, he had dreams that someone had swallowed him. Kratos, for some reason, doesn't react to such oddities of his son, only calls everything nonsense or madness. This is Sparta! In addition to predicting the future, Atreus can hear the voices of animals and even the dead. This ability is suddenly revealed to him when they find themselves in Alfheim, the abode of the Light Elves. At first, Atreus hears the voice of Kratos, but at that moment he is silent and thinks that his son has completely gone mad. but in fact he heard voices asking for help. Atreus then confesses to his father that one of the voices reminds him of his mother's voice, to which Kratos replies that this is impossible. Back to the world serpent. Since Loki's name has already been used by many, Marvel, you've probably already heard that in mythology, he had kinda unusual kids. Loki could transform into different animals, thanks to which he mated with them and gave birth to monsters. One of them was just the snake Jormungandr. By the way, a small hint from the developers. When Atreus finds out that he is a god, he asks his father if he can turn into an animal. Kratos as always is shocked by his son. But in the game, Loki is still a child to mate with animals, no matter how strange it sounds. But there is also an explanation for this. At the first meeting, Jormungandr recognizes Loki, which Mimir's head will tell us about. Besides, when during the battle with Baldur, the giant Thamur starts spitting on our screens, Jormungandr comes to the rescue at the first call of Loki. And yet, there was one such interesting phrase. Mimir said that a bit of an unpleasant story happened between the serpent and Thor, or it will happen. Later, he tells about the battle of Jormungandr and Thor during Ragnarok. Their collision will break the world tree Yggdrasil, which will lead to a violation of the flow of time and throw out the serpent even before his own birth. By the way, in mythology, Thor and Jormungandr really hated each other, but they both died in battle during Ragnarok. Jormungandr died from a hammer blow to his head, and Thor from his poison which gushed into his face. According to Mimir, their collision provoked teleportation into the past, and this theory is confirmed by the secret ending. Atreus dreams of future, in which a few years later, Thor comes to Kratos' house to wave his Mjolnir. And although Thor's face isn't shown to us, we can get from the lightning and Mjolnir that this is him. However, Loki is still a child at that time, which doesn't fit the myth. In mythology, Loki is generally the same age as Odin, so he is more of an uncle to Thor. By the way, soon I will post a video explaining the endings, so you can find the link on the top right and in the description. Next fact, meow. Atreus disease. Atreus gasped for half the game and even coughed up blood. And during the battle with Thor's son, Magni and Mondi, he generally becomes enraged but cannot control his power. Actually, Kratos is to blame for all this, since he hid their origin from him. For this reason, Atreus unknowingly denied the powers of a god in himself, thinking that he was an ordinary mortal. But I don't really want to blame Kratos for this, since he just wanted to protect his son from all sorts of gods like Odin. However, this led to the fact that Kratos went to Helheim, the world of the dead, and tore out the heart of its guardian. This heart was needed to save his son. By the way, this huge bird is one of Ragnarok's cockerels. In mythology, the cry of 3 cockerels means the beginning of the end of the world. At first I thought it was a local boss that I would have to fight. Anyway, as you can guess, all the events that take place lead to Ragnarok, which means to the end of the gods. However, there is something else that doesn't fit into the mythology. In a fight with Baldur, Kratos decides to let him live if he doesn't touch Freya. But he wasn't going to listen to Kratos and starts to strangle his mother. So Kratos kills him. In mythology, Loki turns into a woman and deceives Baldur's brother by slipping him the only thing that can kill him, an arrow of mistletoe. As a result, Loki tells him like, your brother is immortal anyway, let's shoot him, it's fun. And he really does it, which leads to the beginning of Ragnarok. But in the game, a mistletoe arrow pierces Baldur's hand and he becomes mortal again, after which Kratos finishes him off. And although he says that the cycle of parricide will end here, in mythology on the contrary it begins with this. In addition, Atreus asks Kratos, would he also act like Freya and allow him to be killed from his hand? To which Kratos replies that if his life depends on it, then yup. This may hint at the death of Kratos in the next part of God of War Ragnarok, But who knows? There are already too many discrepancies for everything to be like in mythology. For example, Magni and Modi were supposed to survive after Ragnarok and revive life, but in the game, Kratos and Atreus decided to rewrite history and killed them. In addition, at the end of the game we see a mountain of dead giants, which is also different from the mythology, since they were supposed to participate in Ragnarok. Anyway, hope I didn't confuse you. And if you want to learn more interesting things about God of War and other games, then subscribe to my channel. And also, don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. It's okay if you don't have them, then just with your mom or waifu. Anyways, be sure to write in the comment section if I missed something interesting about Loki, and see you next game!